Advice is a dangerous thing.
It's a hell of a drug.
It's a hell of a drug. Some people can't even make a move without getting advice from another person. It's scary. And it says just how handicapped we are.
What's going on, millionaires? It's your guy Kai Speaks back with another episode of the $1 Million Mind Podcast. In here, rocked off with my co-host, Heavy House Jazz. How you feeling?
Hey, you know I'm feeling good. You know I'm always feeling good. I'll tell you when I'm not.
And we probably gonna know when you're not too, right? Because one thing about Jazz always got this radiant energy, you know, always making you feel good, always reminding you about, you know, the timing of things, just real zen. You got a real zen energy about you. Has anyone ever told you? Yeah, you got a real zen. You got a real zen energy.
Oh gosh, that was first. That means the feminine is coming in.
Yeah, it's coming in. Okay,
No.
yeah, you got the zen energy going, and you got. I respect it. I revere it, and you know, it's one of the main reasons why I'm excited to have these conversations with you on the show. Sure. And speaking of like just energy, our conversation a couple weeks ago, we was just talking about like being in the rooms, being in your creating your own environments for growth. And so it got me thinking, and I wanted to put out a Facebook post, and you saw my post on IG too. It was like, you know, what kind of advice, what was the worst advice you got, you know, before making a huge decision? Because, you know, depending on the type of environment and the type of support and that you're surrounded by, that plays a huge part. Is like when it's, you know, time for you to make game-changing decisions, you know, what type of advice you're getting.
Right.
And so I was just really like reminiscing on some of the advice, good and bad. And I was thinking of some of the bad advice that I've gotten. So I was curious to see like what other people's advice was. But before I dive into like the comments, because the comments went crazy on this post, like if you could recall a time like you got some really bad advice, what was that advice? And what was the decision you were getting ready to make that you called for some advice?
Just do it.
That was like, I got that one so many times. Just do it is some bad advice, ain't it?
No, proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
I feel like that's good advice, though.
No, I'm saying just do it was the advice.
Got you.
And what
you was responding like,
me,
okay,
yes,
got
my
you.
response is proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Where'd you get that from?
You know what? I actually got it from one of my very close friends that used to be a football player, and his coach. I mean, would tell him that all the time. You know,
his coach must have been some type of Greek organization, I feel like.
I don't know, but he definitely is a staple in my life. He gives me a lot of great advice. So yeah, but it stuck with me. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. So yes, you can do it, but you should have some type of, you know, drive behind it. And the biggest thing for me is passion. You know, you can just do it if you want to, for the money, for this, for that. But if you don't have drive, are you really gonna finish? Right? If you're not prepared, do you even have the resilience and the plan to finish? So yeah, you can just do it. I guess I get being a risk taker, but I also get being a failure over and over again. Nobody wants to see that. They don't.
Yeah.
You know.
And so the way we always said it was prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Okay.
So like a little twist in the peas right there.
Okay.
But I'm glad that you mentioned that, because you're right. It is a way that you can, you know, still take risk, still jump into, you know, don't allow the thought of failure to stop you from doing something or trying something new. But it's still certain ways you need to look at it. You got to look at it through the lens of, okay, how can I go into this at least prepared? You know, when I do this, at least prepared to fail. Like if it don't work out, what does that look like? So I live by those P's as well.
Yes.
Prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. And like you said, that was a very common one. Like the first one that I got was just do it. But I also got an interesting one that was like, you'll figure it out. You always do. And I'm like, I was thinking back, I'm like, and it's like, it's so crazy because a lot of times when we asking for advice, the people who are giving it to us because they mean well. But it all, depending on the type of advice you got, it also means that you're asking the wrong person, because you're asking somebody for advice in something they don't have experience in. So like now you're forcing them. It's like you're forcing them to be this person that they're not when you ask the wrong people for advice. It's like if I was to ask
You gotta know who to go to.
You gotta know who to go to.
You really do, and that comes with discernment and then just wisdom over time. I mean, some people just have it. They know they have all those resources, and they kind of like, hey, ask uncle for this, ask this person for this. But a lot of times, it's who actually has the knowledge to actually give you an educated answer behind the advice they're giving.
Yeah. And that's even kind of going back to when we was just talking to Benny, not too long ago, with him even talking about getting a mentor. It's like, you got to really dig deep into who the right people are that you can connect to before you just throw anybody in the fire of helping you out with your problems, helping you out with your plan, because the wrong driver, if you got to get from A to B and you ask somebody to drive this car that don't got no license, you either going to jail or you in an accident, right? So it's like, you got to choose wisely on who you allow or assign to be your counsel.
Right. And are you prepared enough? Meaning physically, mentally, right?
That's a good one.
Like, a lot of times people will go and they give you this advice, but they're never actually looking at the person, and are they prepared?
And to tell you what the red flags are, to even ask you, like, did you do this first? Oh, no, you didn't? Then you need to do... Wow,
right?
That's
Like,
a good
are
point.
they prepared? It reminds me of that mother and father that's always like, well, you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this. But have they actually even looked at their kid and say, are they capable of sustaining this right now? That's the worst advice that I've gotten is people that aren't actually taking advantage of looking at the actual vehicle that they're giving the advice to. Can they sustain that advice?
Dang. Can they sustain that advice? That reminds me, I'm reading this book right now by, I think her name is Dr. Shalfari, and it's called The Conscious Parent. And what you said reminded me of a little bit what she was talking about, because a lot of parents, they look at their kids as a reflection of them or a reflection of who they want them to be or who they wanted to be. And they look at their kids as this second chance, forgetting that their kid is a whole nother spirit, a whole nother being that has its own purpose, his own path that they need to walk. And so when you say it like that, it reminded me that that's a totally wrong way to go about it, especially if you just shoving down your kids' throats like, did you do this? You got to do this. You got to do X, Y, Z. But if you spend your whole child's life telling them how to climb a tree, when in fact they may be a fish, you try to tell a fish how to climb a tree, the fish gonna grow up thinking it's dumb or incapable its whole life, right? So it's like you gotta really be coherent on like who your child is spiritually and who they're growing into be, what their imprint might be, so that you don't impose your beliefs and your wants and desires on them.
Correct.
That's crazy.
Correct. And that goes for, right, not just the advisor, but the advisee. So meaning knowing, right, what advice you are getting. Is it bad for you at that time? Some people know me, some kids know me, but we're just going back into the whole like, hey, what's the worst advice somebody is giving you? Yeah. Right? Meaning, are you prepared to do that? Mm-hmm. Is that advisor advising you in the right timing? And then where is that advisor when they're giving that information? Mm-hmm. It's a lot to take in when you're listening to advice for somebody else.
Yeah. I think the worst advice I've gotten, it actually is very relevant to where we are now, because the worst advice I got was, don't do video, focus on audio. And this is related to what we're talking about now and what we was talking about Benny when it comes to like getting the right mentor and stuff like that.
Right, because you're in media, yes.
Because I was looking at a mentor, somebody to help me with launching a podcast. I had this huge idea on my podcast. We here now.
Yes.
But if it wasn't for getting better advice from somebody else later on down the line, we would still be an audio only platform.
Man.
And
I just heard you giving advice of like, hey, that's a great tip. And meaning what results it actually did for your business, having video going from just audio, and you giving that advice because you've actually taken the leap to do it. You're actually doing it.
But if I would have just listened to, the thing is, I listened to that advice and I listened to it for too long, because we started the podcast in 2018. Jaz, I told you we ain't get on YouTube till February 2022. So we looking at like 3 to 4 years of doing audio only when if we would have been doing video since 2018,
Ahead of the game.
who knows where we would have been? I guarantee you we probably would have been a little bit, you know, we would have been a little bit where we would have been somewhere different where we are
But
right
you've
now.
been able to produce amazing things.
Right.
You know, and now being able to take all that experience. But talk about bad advice.
It's like, it's crazy. And then it just, me not knowing the right questions, me not knowing the direction that I wanted to take it. Because, of course, where I was then and where I am now is like, I started the podcast because, I don't know if you know this, I wanted it to be a book review of my first book. Like, I literally wanted to use it just to talk about the chapters in my book and to, like, review it and to go a little bit deeper into the chapters, right? So it's like, I didn't even know the right direction. And so my advice to others would be like, before making any decision, look within and really do an audit of your intention, right? Like do an audit of what your intentions are and why you want to do this thing, where you want to take this thing. You know, you don't have to have all those answers, you know, answered right away, but at least challenge yourself to think outside and think bigger, because that might even help you identify who is the right person to ask.
Understood. I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely agreed. It's funny that we kind of veered off into that whole, you know, parents and kids and advising them. And I just wanted, you know, I'm really passionate about the youth, and I had just made a post on my Instagram the other day saying that, hey, the youth needs somewhere to talk to.
Oh, I saw that one.
Right? The youth needs somewhere to talk to. And the reason why I said this is because who's their predominant advisor? It's their parents.
And it really depends, because like it also could be the school too, because if they in school, right, kids spend most of their days actually in school, and then you think about it, they're in school from 8 to 3, then they come home 3 to 9.
Yeah.
They up, so that's about another 5-6 hours, and then they sleep, and then they waking up again at 6-7 o'clock to go right back to school. So it's like,
I agree. However, I do think that the parent has a very domicile chain on the child's mind. Like,
right.
A kid doesn't come to be validated by their teacher, even at 2 years old. They come to you. They come to their parent.
It start there.
They want to be validated by that parent in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So it's funny how that advice of that parent mixed with emotions. I mean, it's advising people not to follow their dreams all over the world. Mm-hmm. So just like you said, tapping into that inner you, right, from even that advice you're getting, and being able to be strong-willed, not disrespectful, but being able to stand up for what your desires are saying, even sometimes getting that advice from your parents. Mm-hmm. Advice is a dangerous thing.
It's a hell of a drug.
It's a hell of a drug. Some people can't even make a move without getting advice from another person. It's scary. And it says just how handicapped we are.
And making decisions and decision making
for our own lives.
Yeah.
And it bridges right into the mindset of why there's more followers than leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we're looking for the next person or the next commercial or the next podcast or the next thing to advise us on what we're supposed to be doing.
That's big.
Okay.
That's big. You just reminded me of like one of my favorite classes that I took at Cheney. Wasn't even a major class. It was an elective. And it was called Critical Thinking.
I love critical thinking.
I didn't even know that was a class. But when I saw him, like, this is interesting. It's a credit. It's going to get me, closer to graduating. I'll take it. It sounded like an easy class. Yep. But the stuff we was talking about in there was like challenging, like believing half of what you see and none of what you hear type of stuff. Challenging theories.
Yes.
Making decisions. How to increase your decision-making time, like the buffer time it takes for you to make a decision. Like, that was by far at the end of it all was my favorite class, because I feel like that gave me the confidence to like go into a major decision, even if I don't have all the information. And I'm not saying every decision that I made was the right decision, but I could still go into the decision confident that even if it's the wrong decision, I have to wear the weight of that wrong decision, bear down on the consequences and just move forward and just learn something from it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So it was like, damn, I feel like that is a class that should be offered more often. And I don't hear most people have an experience with a class like that. I think that we should go into it.
And today, with all of the actual choices that we have to make, I mean, even at the youth right now, you know, me and you were talking about this the other day, meaning like, I mean, there's so many choices on just general job application that we didn't have before, right? I mean, let's be real. From what do you call yourself? A woman, a man, this, that. There's so many choices to make. I mean, we're not actually, like you said, critical thinking. We don't have the critical thinking skills to actually come to some decision.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. So look, I had the one comment that I thought was the most interesting was the worst advice before a major decision was being told not to do it from a person who was scared to have that same responsibility I was asking advice on.
Exactly.
One, I'm thinking, shoot, why you ask that person anyway, right? if you acknowledge that they was scared to ask
some people ask certain people just to play it safe. You know that? Like a lot of people, they actually self-sabotage to me. They'll literally ask somebody that's gonna allow them to be comfortable, meaning to not give them the right advice of what to do. You would be surprised how the mind does that. Kind of.
Also to feel
even
safe,
the Jews
like
wanted to still be slaves.
But also I feel like it's also to make their, like, they will already have a decision made and they'll ask the wrong people.
Literally stand.
Yeah, they will ask the wrong people just to support and, you know, solidify their decision. Yes. But that don't do you no justice either, because you could be, you know, totally wrong in your thought process on how you're going about it, and you asking somebody unqualified just to make yourself sound smart. That's the same thing as putting yourself and being the smartest person in the room.
Right. So I mean, ultimately, it comes down to you as an individual. You know, are you willing to ask for the right? You know, seek out the advice that you really need, because there's an intent behind why you asked. Right. So checking that intention, like you say all the time, checking that intention, making sure that you know who to ask, and also not allow certain advice just to stunt what you're going to ask for. Yeah. Right.
And at the end of the day, the first place you need to go for advice is within anyway.
Within and with God.
And that's what I mean by within.
I agree.
That's what I mean by within.
I was just making it kind of more, you know,
you was making it more clear,
a little more clear. But like, you know, we always are relying on man, and it's like, do not rely on bread alone, right? I always say it. Do not rely on bread alone. And when you believe and you take all of your intent to another man, you just reversing God's plan.
Yeah.
So
right.
That's all I can say. I mean, and advice, what's bad advice? You know, what's the worst advice? Even what's another worst advice I've gotten?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was the biggest one that I could think of. Ooh, somebody told you to stop being you?
Well, you know, it's kind of like just
dumb it down a little bit. Dim it, okay.
Or like, and it really, I'll be honest with you, I took some of that advice at a time.
How did that make you feel?
Like a fish out of water. Because how can you not be you?
Yeah,
it's almost like you're going against everything that you were made to be. Mm-hmm. And so you're literally fighting. You're fighting to be something that you're not. Mm-hmm. You know.
And that's exhausting.
It is. It's very exhausting. And eventually, if you have enough passion being who you want to be, it's going to win anyway. Mm-hmm. So that's some of the worst advice I've gotten, is to dumb down who I am.
Damn.
And primarily because one of my gifts is being me.
Yeah. Right.
I'm serious.
That's the first gift you literally were given.
Yeah.
It's a personality. That's the first gift you give.
Some people really do have a gift of like being this like something else, faking it till they make it or whatever. You know, I don't know. But for me,
right. But it's like,
that was the worst advice I've gotten.
Is that really a gift? Because to me, I feel like, I don't want to get too deep, and I want to wrap this up. But it's like, I feel like if you've gotten really good at fitting in places you internally don't belong, you don't. It's like you're doing yourself a disservice, because now you are rewiring your brain to become someone you're not.
That's it. I agree. And this is real big.
Yeah.
What you just said. This is real big. Man, Kai, I love talking to you. I love talking to you about these certain subjects because I always get something new when I'm talking with you. Like, it's always that deep. It gets there just just organically.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate it, Jaz. Yeah. And, you know, of course, I appreciate the listeners as well, you know, because, you know, I asked this question on YouTube first, took it to Facebook, and, you know, we got some good feedback on Facebook. But, again, I just really appreciate the engagement and, you know, the engagement, just the people telling us what they like, how they want it to be delivered. Yeah. I appreciate you giving me even, you know, more ideas on how we can engage with the audience and stuff like that. So y'all keep in mind, we got some amazing things on the way.
Oh, yes.
Amazing things that, you know, we don't want to spoil it just yet. But, I mean, y'all just being here, you are in the right place. If you're just looking for authenticity, you looking for conversations on money, mindset, entrepreneurship, like you stick around in 180 days, your life is going to be in a totally different like trajectory on where you are right now. Like if you are here and you're trying to get here in 180 days, you just may end up here, right? It's like they say shoot for the stars, because if you don't make it, you'll land on the moon. It's like
right. Who surrounds themselves with good energy, who's putting the right things into their ears, their mind, their eyes, you will reap the reward of that. So you want to be surrounded by a positive mindset. One thing about the $1 Million Mind is that we are encouraging the mind to be resilient, understand what it needs to be sustainable in anything that you go after, and to be the best at whatever you're doing at that time. So I love the $1 Million Mind. I love being a part of it. This community is enriched. I know that it's going to continue to grow. I'm just happy to be here to share myself, to hear you all's feedback, give you what we've got, and just keep building.
Just keep building.
Building, because it's the miraculous miracles that come from within our heart, boom, that then goes to the next level. Yeah. So,
and the people, like right. Like not even just the conversations, the people we getting ready to start introducing to the listeners is about to be like,
make sure you tap in.
Next level. Like
make sure
you
tap in. Man, if you want to understand security, if you want to be able to educate yourself, if you want to be able to have certain resources and know who to tap in that's really doing something right now, you better be staying tuned.
Hey, make sure y'all smash that like button, hit subscribe if you didn't already, and share this with a friend or two that needs this information as well. I'm your guy, Kai Speaks. We out.